Hi, so today I'm going to tell you how I like to make my recipes and then measure them out, making sure that each serving size is equal. I've talked about this a lot in my meal plans, but I haven't ever actually demonstrated it, so I wanted to show you what it looks like. So the first thing I'm going to do is weigh my big bowl that I'm going to make all the food in so that I know how much this bowl weighs empty, and I'll use that number later on. I'm just going to turn on my food scale. It's going to tare itself, and I want to make sure that I'm on the right setting. So it's on ounces right now, and I'm going to move it to grams. Okay, so then I'm just going to put the bowl on, and now it shows me that this bowl weighs 317 grams. So I'm just going to write that down so that I have it in my head and I remember. So the next step is going to be to actually assemble the food that I'm making. And today I'm making one of the things off of my 21-day meal prep challenge, which is a black bean southwestern salad. So I'm going to show you how to do one thing, just dividing the portions equally. And then I'm going to show you how to do something if I were actually tracking my macros to be able to keep it with macros as well. Now I have all of my ingredients for the salad in the big bowl together, ready to be mixed. So the next step is to see how much this weighs. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the scale on again, let it tare out, and I'm just going to put the bowl with all of the things in it on the scale. Now the total weight is 1,626 grams. So now the next step is to just subtract the weight of the bowl. So when I take 317 grams away from 1,626, I have 309 grams. Is that right? I don't have my phone because it's making the video, so I can't use my calculator. Doesn't seem right. 1,309 grams. So now that I've got that weight, the next step is to divide that number by the number of days I want to have a meal for, which for me is 5. So I'm going to divide 1,309 by 5. And for this, I'm going to need my calculator. So I'm going to pause the video and do that math. Okay, so I went in and I did the math, and that comes out to 261.8 grams per serving. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to stir everything up, make sure it's well mixed, and then I'm going to divide it evenly into these containers so that each container has around the same amount, around 261 grams, because I know that that is an equal sized portion. And this is just a little bit more accurate than actually eyeballing and seeing how much goes into each container. This just makes it a little bit more specific. You know you're getting the same amount for each day. And there's a few things that you can do once you've really gotten good at this method, which I'll show you when we come on to making the dressing. So in the recipe, they actually ask you to mix the dressing with the salad. But since I'm going to be making this for meal prep, I tend to just like to leave my dressing on the side. So for this example, I'm going to show you how to do the dressing with the same method, but instead I'll actually be adding in an aspect of macros to that. So now I'm just going to take this up and divide it equally into 5 containers. Now for the next step, I'm just going to go ahead and put my meal prep container on the scale. It's going to give me the weight, but I don't need to know that, so I'm just going to tare it out to 0. So now the scale thinks that this is 0, and I'm going to add in my food until it gets to 261 grams. Okay, now it's 259 grams, so that's close enough for me, and I'm just going to do it for the rest of the days. Okay, so now I'm all done with that. And the nice part about this is your containers don't have to match. It doesn't have to be super fancy. You're just putting it into a container. So now I have all 5 of the salads actually prepped and ready. So here we go. Ooh, here we go. All of those are ready to go, and I have all of my lunches for the next. Okay, now I'm going to make the salad dressing, but I'm going to do this in a little bit of a different way, so you can see how it's used to track macros and how I can adjust my serving sizes but still know exactly how many calories that I'm getting, how much protein, etc. Because maybe one day I want a lot of dressing, maybe one day I want less dressing. So let's go ahead and make this salad dressing, and I'll kind of talk you through the steps as I'm doing it. So step 1, always is weigh your bowl. If I can give you anything that you want to remember from this, is weigh your vessel. Maybe it's a casserole dish, maybe it's a big mixing bowl, maybe it's a pot or a pan that you're using to cook a 1-dish meal. I can show you how to do this with some other different vessels, but just always remember to weigh the item that you're baking it in or that your final dish will be in before you start, if you're going to divide it up for meal prep. Now, you can transfer it afterwards, and after a while, you might even just get the weights of a lot of your things written down. I keep some of them on a little sticky note on the inside of this drawer, things that I use a lot, like my blender, or I have the big silver bowl. This one's a little bit smaller, so I'm going to weigh it, and it is 234 grams. So I'm just going to write that down so I know it. Now I'm going to go ahead and tear this out, and I'm going to actually use the scale to measure my ingredients. So the first ingredient in this dressing is Greek yogurt. So I'm going to use the food scale to measure out the appropriate amount. So it calls for 2/3 cup, which is 150 grams. And I just know that because I did the math. You can get it from the label. So here I've got 143, 158. That's a little bit too much. Boom, perfect. So put that one away. And then I'm going to get my next ingredient, which is the juice of 1 lime. So again, between each ingredient, I'm going to tear out the scale. I'm going to write down 150 grams of yogurt. Now I'm just kind of rolling this lime out to get the juices going. It's a really hard lime. See exactly how many grams of lime juice I'm putting in. Now, this recipe probably doesn't really matter how specific you are, but you can apply these concepts to really any dish that you're making. I'm going to squeeze the lime juice in. You could absolutely use a bottled lime juice for this if you wanted, but I happened to order these, so gotta use them up. All right, so this turned out to be 62 grams of lime juice. So I'm just going to write that down. Next, we need 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. I'm just going to shake this up first. And again, I'm going to tear out my scale. Just measure the 2 tablespoons. Should be about 30 grams. 32. And then the last 2 ingredients, we've got our olive oil. We need 3 tablespoons. I don't like a lot of oil in my dressings, so I'm actually going to just use 2. Oh, that one's not open yet. I'll pour in 1, 2. And I actually forgot to tear out the scale, but it was 29 grams of olive oil. And then the last ingredient is 1.5 tablespoons of taco seasoning. So I'm just going to use this little packet we had left over from one of our meal kits. And I'm going to pour in, and I'm just going to eyeball it. Forgot to tear. I'm going to eyeball. We got about 1, and then that's probably about a half. Let's put the whole thing in. Anyway, it was 9 grams. So I'm just gonna put in 9 grams taco seasoning. Okay, so that's all the ingredients. Okay, so now the dressing's all done. I'm gonna go back and repeat that step that I did in the last meal prep when I did the salad. So I'm gonna tear out my scale and weigh the whole thing. The whole thing weighs 515 grams. So then I'm gonna take 234 from that because that's how much the bowl weighs. So this is going to be 289 grams of salad dressing. So what I could do is I could divide 289 by 5 and put it into separate containers, or just, add it onto the salad the way that I wanted to. But I want to show you a different trick. So now that I know that the whole batch of salad dressing weighs 289 grams, I can actually kind of manipulate this utilizing MyFitnessPal to be able to show you the different serving sizes and how many calories, protein, carbs, and fat each one has. So I will know exactly how much is coming in the serving. I'm coming into MyFitnessPal now. I'm going to create a recipe and I'm going to choose to enter ingredients manually. The web feature is really helpful if you're using a recipe from the internet. Anyway, here I'm creating the name of the recipe, which here it's just creamy taco dressing. Now in the space where I'm putting the number of servings, I'm actually going to put the number of grams for the salad dressing. In this case, it's 289 grams. So in this case, now we think every gram of the salad dressing is 1 serving. Here I'm going to enter in all of the ingredients with their weights. So this is why I weighed each item as I was putting it in. I click next and it will manually match those ingredients. It actually matched one incorrectly, but I can easily go in and change that to the correct item. Now I'm going to hit save and it actually creates this recipe and I can start to log it in MyFitnessPal and see how many calories, how much protein, carbs, and fat are in each serving. So like I talked about earlier, it's 57 grams per serving if I wanted to divide it equally, but I'm going to say I'm giving myself 40 grams, which means 40 servings. And here you can see the specific calories, carbs, fat, and protein for that 40 gram serving. Now, in a recipe like this, it's such a small amount that it's kind of negligible, but this can be really helpful if you're creating a big meal like a soup, chili, a casserole, a big grain salad, really anything. You can use this grams as the number of servings so that you can sometimes have a big bowl, sometimes have a little bowl. You don't have to separate it out into equal quantities and you get to listen to your hunger cues a little bit better. So I find this to be a really helpful way to create recipes. Okay, now the last step is I'm going to add that amount of dressing to my salad. So I'm putting my salad container full of salad on the scale. I'm tearing it and I'm going to take my dressing and just pour until I see 40 grams. 41, but that's close, so I could just adjust it in the settings. There is going to be a little bit of losses with everything. I'm sure you could see there were like little pieces of lettuce stuck on the bowl after I put everything in. There's going to be a little bit of dressing that drips as you shift from container to container, but that's okay. These little tiny numbers are just negligible. So overall, it's just about getting as close as you can. So now I've got my salad all ready with dressing and everything. The only thing I have left to add is some chicken, which I'm going to prep tomorrow. You could see, got a wonderful salad full of protein, great salad dressing. It's going to be so good and keep me full and satiated during lunchtime throughout my days for the rest of the week. So I hope you guys found this information valuable. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out and ask me. And I wish you good luck in getting ready with your meal prep challenge. Bye.